You're on Team Human, conscious intervention in the machine. An opportunity to find the others and establish for real that we are not the crazy ones here. The situation's not unclear, it's just absurd. A built environment so convoluted that accepting its premises means gaslighting oneself. It's time to intervene on behalf of people and all living things. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and we're all on Team Human. Team Human is made possible by Everyone's Earth, the maker of Kobe dryer sheets and a growing line of sustainably sourced and manufactured products that are also completely 100% biodegradable. Yes, your wash cycle can now also be a part of the cycle of life. Moreover, in addition to supporting a company that's actually trying to fix the Procter & Gamble nightmare in which we've become enmeshed, you'll be supporting this show. And as a Team Human insider, you can also get a 10% discount on Everyone's Earth by using the discount code RUSH10. How's that? Sometimes I feel like I don't get out much. I mean, I get outside, I'm with friends or students or meetings or podcasts or dinners and stuff all the time. I'm super lucky right now, and I cherish that. But I'm not sure how much I get outside the community of people who basically get what's going on here. And I'm not talking about agreement, mind you. I just mean the people who, whether they want to dwell on it or investigate it or resist it, they nevertheless see the basic fucked upness of our collective predicament. Because every once in a while, when I'm out in the real world, I find myself talking about something and feeling like the person I am speaking with thinks I'm absolutely crazy. And the more I explain or justify or contextualize or recount the history of something, the more like a crazy conspiracy theorist I sound. As if there were some organized plot and people throughout time have been creating and enforcing systems of control and embedding them so far into the fabric of our constructed world that they've become invisible. Just the way things are. So by trying to reveal the hidden or less known reasons by which all of this came to pass, I'm just revealing myself as paranoid. And I'm not talking about left versus right here. I can go to South Dakota or Alabama or Tennessee and find plenty of MAGA people who recognize the systemic effects of choices made long ago. They may have different solutions, like eliminating vaccines or deporting Mexicans instead of modulating our engagement with them. But even Stephen Bannon's narrative for the late-stage hyper-capitalism under the technocratic elite, and presumably that of his millions of listeners, is consonant with my own suspicions about tech billionaires' true intentions for the future of government, humanity, and life on Earth. I'm actually more comfortable debating someone who draws different conclusions from the same observations, or who makes completely different observations, but at least is looking. So let me tell you what happened and why I'm going off on this right now. So you know those companion podcasts they have for popular TV shows, like where they talk about the latest episode right after it airs? Well, I was a guest on the companion vodcast for one of those high-budget post-apocalyptic streaming series. There's a bunch of them out there these days, and a good number of them are actually based on, or at least inspired by, my book, Survival of the Richest. And while it turns out you don't have to get rights to a nonfiction book in order to use its stories or ideas, it's still nice that the creators of some of them do a little call out when they're giving an interview. Like the guys who made Mountainhead said some nice things about the book, or producers of one of these shows or movies, sometimes they invite me to a panel or an interview at a festival or something. Doesn't pay for my daughter's college tuition, but at least it makes me feel like I'm in the culture, a part of the conversation. And paid or not, I'm still seeing my work on the screen, which is totally cool. And it's almost always the same genre that have me on. It's like billionaires going underground or into a bunker, onto an island retreat in order to survive or celebrate the end of the world, the billionaire bunker genre. So last week, I got invited to be on the vodcast companion show for a Hulu series called Privatize. It's one of the kind like Silo or Fallout or The Ark. A billionaire or a corporation with tremendous foresight develops an impossibly gargantuan fallout shelter for some subset of people to perpetuate the human project. And it's like a whole society in there, a whole world with artificial light and stores and farms and corrupt leaders and an underclass. And this one, Privatize, is about an underground city of like 25,000 people with a fake sky and roads and buildings and a college and everything. It's the ultimate next level, perfect eco-city, tech bro, wet dream utopian American society with a fake president who just takes his orders from the tech billionaire who owns the place. Turns out to be a woman in this show. And responding to the question I raise in my book, her main challenge is to maintain the allegiance of the security force. But unlike most of the other shows in this genre, the bunker they've made doesn't look like a giant missile silo or an artificial shopping mall. It's an impossibly giant town with LED sunlight and roads and cars and wide open spaces. Story-wise, it's pretty much the same premise as the others, like what happened to the world outside? Is everyone dead? Is it safe to check? Who's actually in charge down here? And who really made this place? And what was their ulterior motive? So I'm used to these kinds of interviews ever since Survival of the Richest came out. Everyone wants to know about what the billionaires are really planning, as if the things they tell us they're planning aren't already crazy enough. And in this interview with the lovely wife of the series star, it started like any other. She announces me as this important professor who studies billionaires and bunkers and wrote a book on it. Then she starts by asking me, is the show real? Do billionaires really have plans for bunkers in case of a disaster? And so I've only got 15 minutes, so I figure I'm going to get right to the point. Yes, I told her, most wealthy people are outfitting their existing homes with modifications to make them sustainable and somewhat defensible in the event of a catastrophe of some kind. Yes, Peter Thiel has a compound in New Zealand, and Mark Zuckerberg has a giant estate that also serves as a defensible fortress in Maui. Why not? If you have the money and you understand you're not going to be able to hold out there forever, it's not so unreasonable to have a place to try to protect yourself and your loved ones against the next pandemic or water crisis or civil war. I mean, good luck with that, but go for it. But the show, nor my book, are really about that, I tried to explain. This is much bigger, realer, current. I went on and explained how right now some tech billionaires, including Mark Andreessen, the Netscape guy, and Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn guy, are part of an investing group attempting to buy a large amount of land in Solano County to build a utopian city for themselves and their friends called California Forever. It's a utopian, sustainable eco-city, totally walkable to the tech headquarters. So instead of fixing San Francisco or Oakland, just retreat as if to a bunker and build your own gated community. California forever? Her eyes were widening, taking me in, but also something else going on in her face, like incredulity? No, she'd never heard of Solano or California Forever. That's real? She asked, as if she didn't know? Or more likely, I was thinking that she wanted to make sure the audience didn't think it was presumed knowledge. So, of course, I just dug myself in deeper. Well, it's not the only project of its kind, I told her. There's Neom, the zillion-dollar megacity they're trying to build in Saudi Arabia, a 100-mile-long strip of mirrored city for 9 million people, built from nothing and totally sustainable, except maybe for having to displace a few tens of thousands of Bedouins who've been living there sustainably for the last few thousand years. It's an expensive and improbable as a Mars dome. Or the city in the show Paradise. And she tried to get it back on track. It was crazy. But billionaires have plans for bunkers? What have you seen? Okay, yes, I've seen a couple of plans for bunkers, but the story here is that the real world is becoming a bunker, at least for the wealthy. They don't believe there's enough resources for everyone. They believe in climate change. Their scenarios all point to imminent disaster. So they're busy accumulating as much money and as many resources as possible now in preparation for the coming collapse. She was getting quiet now, as if all this was new. I mean, she was nice, but she looked almost worried for me. I knew I only had like 5, maybe 10 minutes left. So how far back do I go to explain this story, right? Well, think of it this way. You've heard of disaster capitalism? Like blank. Okay, when a disaster happens somewhere, very wealthy people and companies are often able to capitalize on that. They buy distressed properties, take over collapsing businesses. But the disaster turns out to be a good thing, at least for investors from hedge funds or sovereign wealth funds who can afford to buy up public assets. Sovereign wealth funds, she asked? Like, those of us without a PhD need some orientation here. Right, okay. Fair enough. Sovereign wealth funds. You know, resource-rich nations who sell something like oil and don't want to share all the profits with their people, they create these big investment funds with the money and look for assets to buy, like apartments in New York or soccer teams or Trump crypto, whatever. They need ways for their capital to grow, stuff to invest in. The problem is there's more money than there is stuff to buy. So sovereign wealth funds and super rich investors get more opportunity to buy up assets when bad things happen and people need to sell them. So why not create those conditions right now? Like disaster capitalism, but enacted intentionally. That's why they'd raise tariffs, put farms or ports out of business, and then buy up the land or ports or schools or highways, take these public places and turn them into private assets, places they own and control, like the private utopian city in your show, in Paradise. Why would they do this? She asked. I think I lost her. And the more I tried to explain, the further I strained whatever credibility I had left. I started like, all I'm saying is that your show about tech billionaires building a private city to hide from the rest of the world while it decays into Mad Max or The Road, that's not science fiction. It's what we're seeing right now. But why would the wealthy do this, she asked, or something like that. I knew there was no easy way to make this make sense. I kept thinking I would touch bottom, that I'd reach the ground with her and the rest of it would cohere. So I tried to explain how the wealthy were trapped in a system that required exponential growth because of interest-bearing currency. And they're getting nervous because they can't find ways further up the pyramid. That's why they're so intent on growing the AI industry at any cost and getting all regulation out of the way by undermining states' rights or even the European Union. And I saw it in her eyes. She was thinking, is he one of those crazy people? I could hear it just listening to myself. There was just too much to pack into 15 minutes. Summarizing it, or worse, assuming any knowledge just made me sound crazier. I lost her all the way back at Sovereign Wealth Fund. It sounds like something out of a James Bond movie. Are there really such things, or is that a 9/11 conspiracy theory? The whole premise of a sovereign wealth fund sounds like a conspiracy. All finance does. I mean, remember the mortgage crisis? Goldman Sachs sold baskets of mortgages to investors while simultaneously betting against their solvency. They were selling investments they hoped would tank. That's how they would cash in. Sovereign wealth funds, privatizing public assets, billionaires working in collusion with government to deregulate AI. I heard the words coming out of my mouth, and I could tell I sounded crazy to this woman, PhD or not. I mean, I could have gone back to the Knights Templar, the invention of central currency, a city of London. The historical proof points only made it sound worse. I tried to make it plainer. The billionaires are not imagining underground cities after a nuclear war, but creating private cities deep within real ones right now. Think Sao Paulo, or a gated and highly militarized mini-city inside a big one, like the walled palace in a medieval city surrounded by guards, or South Africa before apartheid, or most of the Middle East. That's not a science fiction future. It's what's happening right now, what they're building right now. The ultra-wealthy are creating walled gardens while draining what's left of the Commonwealth and getting us used to seeing the army in our own cities being used against civilians today because they'll be using these troops to protect their enclaves from the rest of us tomorrow. I lost her. She thought I was crazy. She was polite, but I could see she was either worried about me or humoring me or just plain confused. Who booked this guy? Right? I pivoted back to get to a nice ending. At least in the show, we find out the real world may have not been fully destroyed. People got along okay up on the surface, even after the disaster. So maybe the billionaires are vastly underestimating us human beings. Taking themselves off the playing field may be the best thing that ever happened to us. So I managed to get into stuff that made me sound a little more team human and a bit less survival of the richest. But the experience was agitating me, making me kind of concerned. Have I gone off the deep end myself? Right? Just describing the function of a sovereign wealth fund sounds like conspiracy theory. Or where corporations come from, or wage labor, or how capitalism works. And that's when it hit me. We are that far down this road. I was still talking to her about her show and the apocalyptic billionaires, while also inwardly trying to reassure myself that just because I obviously sound crazy to her doesn't mean I am crazy. It's the world that's crazy. The series of steps that those in power have taken over the past 500 or so years to maintain their control over the economy, the law, the culture, and by extension, the real things of this world, have grown so convoluted that to describe them is to recount the history of the way a sociopathic civilization gets constructed. And in that moment, God's honest truth, I thought about talking to you too, and about how I could use the same logic I was using to console myself, to reassure myself, to console and reassure you too. You are not crazy. We are being gaslit by the constructed world. It's the same way we grow accustomed to the necessity of owning an automobile, simply because our jobs and our homes were placed at distances where we need an automobile to get back and forth, forgetting that these places were zoned by an automobile industry and its lobbyists so that we would need to buy cars. The landscape is crazy. Those of us who see it for what it is, who know its origins, who know that it's constructed, we are the sane ones here. Only in this case, it's our convoluted money system that has convinced billionaires and the investor class that the only way for them to survive is for them to privatize the world, hoard the remaining resources, and lock the rest of us out. Peter Thiel believes that those of us who point this out are literally satanic beings, pulling wealthy winners like himself back into the mud and preventing his ascension to the next level. He says this out loud. This is not conjecture. So no, you are not crazy. Neither am I. This is actually happening. And these events, these schemes, are indeed crazier than a science fiction series. At least on TV, they have some reason for going underground or up into space. We are doing this to ourselves in a completely unnecessary and avoidable way. I've been researching this history for the past 30 years, mainly in an effort to document the fact that this is a created reality, based on both a few false premises about human nature, as well as a few unnecessarily aggressive, dominating styles of control. These choices eventually turn into assumptions, and these inventions eventually turn into institutions. To see them this way, to denature them, to point to their origins and inventedness and the intentions behind them, is to look crazy. The reason they think we're crazy is because we are coming to see how the choices that led us here were arbitrary. We could be doing things differently. So we're blowing up children, poisoning the water, and killing the planet for no good reason. We are not the crazy ones here. The situation's not unclear, it's just absurd. We are living in a constructed world, a built environment so convoluted that accepting its premises means gaslighting ourselves. We are not the crazy ones here. The situation's not unclear, it's just absurd. We are living in a constructed world, a built environment so convoluted that accepting its premises means gaslighting ourselves. Thanks for being on Team Human. You can support this show by going to teamhuman.fm and clicking on support, or just clicking like or sharing or doing whatever the platform you're on kind of suggests you do. It helps us. Team Human is produced by Joshua Chapdelaine and made right here at MCM Studios. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and you've been on Team Human, our last best hope for peeps. I want you to understand why these aren't just a silly product that's like a little bit better. It's the guy, Tom, who makes these dryer sheets is thinking about the whole thing. So like the labor that makes it, how they grow the cotton, how they put this together. You know, you can have like a nice, totally organic cotton t-shirt and it says organic and wonderful, but the manufacturing of that thing uses all these chemicals and all this waste and all this crap. They make these things with that perfect little cotton, but then they have a new process to fabricate the cotton so it doesn't put all that crap. And then when you get it, you get this thing that's like not bad. You just put it in the washer and use it as a dryer sheet, and you take it, you throw it away like with your friggin' compost. It's like it biodegrades, and it's this kind of perfect cycle of life thing. And that's the difference between this and his change diapers that he's coming out with soon and all these other products, is that they're actually sort of end-to-end part of the regenerative cycle and not just, greenwashed, oh, this is good for the world.
That's beautiful.